primary characteristics of a thing if all of the ways we have of sensing something are a reaction to our senses, feeling, the different stimuli from the thing. And that led to Berkeley, who came along, George Berkeley, and basically said, you can't prove that there's a physical or material substance out there. We're totally trapped, as this professor from Sussex, and I never caught his name actually, is explaining our contemporary point of view, that all of our thinking, etc., our world is essentially, we wouldn't really call it a hallucination. That belittles it, I think, to call it a hallucination. But I get where he's going with that, right? And so for Berkeley, there's no way for us to know the primary characteristics of the thing that John Locke says. So this is the problem, right? How do we actually know the world as it is in itself, apart from the way it appears to us, right? That seems quite a dilemma. Berkeley, in a way, cheats, because at that point he says, we know that the world is true as it appears to us because it's all in the mind of God. That's his conclusion, right? However you want to interpret it, and I think it ties in beautifully with Leibniz and what else is going on at the time. And even in a sense, a contemporary sense, when we think of everything as actually energy, and energy in an arrangement, and we can still ask, what's the responsible force behind this apparent arrangement? And, one of the ways we could, it's the universe. Or if you define God the way the medievals did, well, then the correct word to use is God. But it's actually not a whole lot different than what Stephen Hawking calls the universe, right? Right? It's just two different words for the same kind of thing, right? But Berkeley doesn't have proof that there's anything out there that is causing the continual stability of the world as we perceive it. Remember the limerick, about the tree in the quad. It's funny that you think the tree continues to be when there's no one about in the quad. You're being silly. I'm still here, says God, right? Sorry, I screwed up the last part of the limerick, but you get the idea. Well, David Hume is the one that comes along, Scottish, about 18 years old when he discovers this. And what is it that he discovered? Well, I think it's basically in reading Locke and Berkeley, he's realized that if the empiricist point of view is that the only thing we can know for sure is what we're perceiving. So I'm perceiving, as he just said, you lot. That's a funny Britishism, isn't it? You lot. That's kind of y'all. I could do it. I could translate it to English, right? Y'all. American English, right? Y'all. Okay, that could be funny or not. I understand you're not letting. Pardon?
That's
Southern. Yeah, Southern. Yeah, Georgia.
Not Southern, but
I'm not from the South,
States.
the South.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Me
you.
too.
Only
But-
it's like grammatical property.
Yeah.
Y'all all interesting words and it usually covers like every prefix he, she, all that stuff.
I picked it up from being in Texas for a while.
Yeah.
I lived in Texas for 3 months,
Yeah.
and I was there for actually another month, so altogether 4 months.
I was there for 4 months too.
So I learned how to say thank you.
I don't know about that one. That was a little dorky, I think.
Yeah, well, me, I have no talent, number one, and I was born in Philly, so I could talk like a from there,
Have you ever heard somebody talk, like, who are from the deep south?
Oh yes.
They just mumble. Like, their sentences are just one word.
Like Boomhauer?
Well, where was I? I got lost here. We had too many
Southern song.
Squirrels.
We
or
like
whatever.
accents here.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so Hume, about 18, discovered something, and he decided to write about it. He spent, I think, 3 years in Paris at the time, and wrote his first book. And the discovery is that if, as empiricists, all we know for sure is what we're perceiving at the moment. And what does that mean? Well, taking this guy's interpretation of the whole problem, it's a hallucination that we're having, or whatever. But the thing is, I know at the moment that I'm perceiving something, that's my experience. That's what I'm perceiving, even if it's internal or external. As far as I know, I'm perceiving you lot right now, for example, your bright red sweatshirt, etc. All that stuff is what I'm sure I'm experiencing at the moment, right? But given that that's the criterion for certitude, that it's the perception I'm having right at this moment, take a metaphysical problem. Say I'm playing pool, and I'm all lined up with the cue ball, and the 8 ball is sitting at the corner, and I call the shot, and I shoot, and I actually hit it exactly the way I mean to, and the 8 ball goes in the pocket. Now, say I take that and I put it back and try the shot again, exactly the same way, as close to exact as I can, and it does it again. I can do that again, and some pool sharks, I think, practice this all day, right? Just keep going and going until you're absolutely certain exactly how you're going to shoot, right? And you think, if I'm shooting this way, it is cause and effect, will cause my shooting at the cue ball in this situation will cause the 8 ball to go into the pocket. And we think that's necessary. That's what causality is. It's necessary, right? Well, imagine this, and this isn't exactly what Hume says. He does use the billiard ball reference, though, which is kind of cool because it tells you they're playing billiards during his lifetime, right? But if you think, here he is, shooting, and you expect the shot to go exactly as you remembered it going before, but instead, this time, when you shoot the cue ball, just before it hits the 8 ball, the 8 ball jumps up in the air and goes, woohoo, you can't get me! And the cue ball goes, hey, you can't do that! And falls into the pocket, scratch. What just happened? Easily call that a hallucination of some sort, right? What I'm thinking is, I was wrong of me to watch the movie. What was the name of the one where the rabbit?
Alice in Wonderland.
Not Alice in Wonderland. There's one where the detective goes into Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Yeah. I slipped into a tune. I went from reality into a tune.
Or Space Jam.
Space Jam? Okay.
Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Yeah. By the way, there's a study that says that if you're viewing things as if it's a cartoon, that's a particular area in the brain that they've identified where it's overstimulated, and it means that you're seeing things as cartoons. Because that's the area in our brain that creates cartoons. And this is stimulated by people that are like losing their sight, having trouble with blindness and things, that the visual centers are still stimulated, and so we'll start seeing things, right? And so you can see faces. If one area is having all these stimuli and so on. So it's kind of interesting how they've been able to isolate the different things in the brain. Go ahead.
So, is that where Ralph Bakshi was so insane? Is that
Who?
Ralph Bakshi, the guy that made the Cool World and all those other tunes?
I guess they would have to do a neuro study on him while he's still alive. That's the trouble. To identify that you have to go into the machine and be stimulated or whatever, and see, have the brain monitored by the fMRI, I suppose, right? Well, so back to this example though of what's going on in billiards, right? Where is the necessity that we think of in this expectation, right? We're expecting things to happen precisely as we're used to. And in what we think of as real life, that hallucination that we all agree is real, right? And actually, I don't think he's right on that. I don't think we would all agree on exactly what we're experiencing together. We probably would discover differences depending on different aspects of our
You remember that dress that's like blue or gold or like black and something else?
Black and gold and white.
It's blue and black. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the problem for David Hume. That proves that what we thought was necessary, cause and effect, is actually a product of our memory. The reason I think things will happen the same way as before is because I'm remembering how things went before. And so I'm using my memory as a kind of tool to say, this is what will happen. As he said, it's kind of a predictive tool. I've experienced things this way, so I'll expect it to happen again. But yes, it's my expectation. I get in the car, drive a certain way. This morning it was really weird because as I was passing one of the neighbor's house, there was a black SUV there with the back open and two guys in black suits carrying out a body.
Huh?
You just
Say
see
what
homework
now?
or something?
Pardon?
Nothing.
It wasn't a hallucination. This was
Wait
wait a minute, how do I know? I'm convinced that was one of my neighbors was being carried out of his house in a body bag by two guys in black suits.
How'd you know that it was the neighbor in the body bag?
That's true too.
You know what I saw
It
yesterday?
was a body bag
Are you
though.
the one who murdered him? What's your alibi?
I don't have
I
one.
saw a guy, I was at Fred Meyer, and I saw a guy buying like 30 gallons of milk. 30 gallons, like 30 separate gallons. I have a picture.
You too.
Because it's funny. Who needs 30 gallons of milk?
Like an Italian or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy. His wife likes taking baths in milk.
That's what I was saying. He needs a milky bath.
It's a pregnancy enhancement. They're doing it.
Hey, have you seen these doing couponing?
Yeah, actually, good point.
30 gallons of milk for $1.99.
Wouldn't it curl?
$1.99, not bad.
So here's the question. In all seriousity, where is the necessity in this cause and effect? And David Hume points out the reason we feel like it's necessary is because of our memory telling us it will always happen this way. But now here's David Hume's discovery, I think. How do you know that your memory is right?
Your brain can be digitally edited.
Have you ever misremembered something?
Mm-hmm. Your brain's very.
We have. And so, if our memory is what we're depending on for the proof, we don't have a proof that things are that way. Actually, all we know is what's going on at the moment, that we're experiencing it as we're experiencing it at the moment. And we cannot prove cause and effect relationships because they're dependent on memory, but memory could be defective. We can trust it.
Memory can change over time, because if you start making that story, and that's what the story created over time, and that's the new story, you can leave out details, and then, changes and keeps changing, and like, let's say 50 years, your 6 years old birthday party, you only remember certain events of getting the spanking and having,
What a birthday!
no, I'm just making something up. I didn't get spanking on there, but I do remember having the, those ice creams